Hi everyone and welcome to FilmDirt. For this review I'm going to be looking at Prey, which seems to be a standalone Predator movie. It could be the first Predator. I think the year was given in the 1700s, and we're with a Indian tribe with quite a few interesting characters. The leading actress is Amber Midthunder, which is a fantastic name. She plays Naru. And the film is directed by Trachtenberg, whose work I'm not very familiar with either. He directed 10 Cloverfield Lane, which I haven't reviewed on this channel and I haven't even seen, but I keep hearing I should see because it is a good film. So this time period and Indian tribes doesn't really hold much interest for me. I wasn't really looking forward to a long film where we follow these characters deeply. It isn't anything like that at all. I think the film is a little more than an hour and a half, and it is mostly the hunt. Very similar to what we saw in the very first awesome Predator movie, which was also set in a very green, leafy backdrop. Very similar in places, but obviously the characters are completely different. That was such a superb movie for me, with Arnold and Jesse Ventura and all those other guys, big personalities. We couldn't possibly replicate this here, but there's some good characters here. And I almost feel nostalgic for the first Predator movie whenever I see one of the Predator sequels, and there's been quite a few. They're mostly very average. I do have a soft spot for Predator 2, where it was set in the city, and we also had big characters in that one. And that movie in particular, it almost stands alone, doesn't it, as being completely bizarre. There was just something really weird about it. And I don't know if that was just from Gary Busey or not, but yeah, I quite liked it. Danny Glover has got an attitude, and he brings that with him, and it's just very engaging. I wasn't really into the two Alien versus Predator films. I think they both had pluses and minuses the pluses maybe in small quantities in both of those films. I didn't really care for the others. Again, there's some small positives about each of them, I'm sure, but they're pretty much instantly forgettable. I think Prey is the third best Predator movie. And like I say, we don't really hold too long on the life and times of this Indian tribe. We get a few samples and glimpses of their language and what they do to hunt and cook and eat and relationships, but it doesn't really take over the film at all. But the Predator himself is quite an interesting design. They've gone for it seems like a redesign of the face, and I think maybe we're looking at a different species of predator. And we've already established in the previous films that they take on the characteristics of their hosts. But I can't really work out what this predator came through. It's got a longish, elongated head. It might have come from some kind of beast, like a horse. I mean, it's not really a deep film at all by any stretch, and it is really just the hunt. And we get a little bit of that Predator lore that was so captivating back in the 80s. I mean, this is really one of the two major Hollywood villains from the 80s, isn't it? That and the Alien. And really, I've got a lot of time for this movie. I think really, when you step back and look at the bigger picture, they've really gone back to basics here, and I think they needed to. Like I said, I've got a soft spot for Predator 2, and we went back to the city, and it's pretty much, in my eyes, a cop show. And we've got detectives trying to piece together certain things, I guess like what this tribe are trying to do here, to figure out what is going on. What is this beast that seems to be invisible, and that it's leaving evidence and alien tech that eventually gets used against it. All the performances here are great. We really feel like we've gone back in time almost. And when you've got a simple story like this, it doesn't really prompt too much to talk about other than to say, yep, it's a pretty decent film in my book. but if I want to get a fix of the Predator, and about once a year I do, I'll go back to Predator 1 and 2. I can't really see myself revisiting this one, maybe in a year or two, who knows, but I definitely recommend it as a decent watch, and it's still a 4 stars out of 5 for me. One other point of note is that it's come direct to streaming, which is a curious choice. We've basically on the way out of the COVID pandemic, fingers crossed, at least I hope we are, and people going back to the movie theatres and public gatherings, especially with the recent release of Top Gun Maverick, which was a very cinema-friendly movie, wasn't it? I think you really needed to see that on the biggest screen possible. So coming back to home streaming, yeah, it's a curious choice. I'm just wondering how well it does, and in the coming weeks, we'll know the answer to that question. I'm wondering if the money really is in home streaming or at the movie theatre. For me, you can't really beat a night out at the cinema and see a fantastic, awesome movie hugging all 4 corners of a giant screen. The only real problem for me is when you get people talking behind you and coughing and using their phones and devices beeping. You know, you just want to tell people to be quiet because that's what takes me out of the movie. But if I love the look of the movie, it won't stop me taking a trip to the cinema with the wife and or kids. So that's my review of Prey. Highly recommended. And just to leave you with a little bit about myself, I only give my own honest opinion on every movie I review. I don't get any free tickets or any free streaming passes to falsely give a film a favourable review. All my opinions are my own, and I'm not bound to any studio guidelines or any sly payments like some other channels. Thanks a lot for joining me, and I'll speak to you again for another review soon. All the best, take care.